Good afternoon, everyone, and it's a privilege to be standing here amongst these incredible servant leaders who carried out the will of the people of Minnesota. And the message that we're sending to Minnesota today is very clear. Your rights are protected in this state. You have the right to make your own decisions about your health, your family, and your life. In a few moments, we'll make sure that our state law reflects exactly that. On June 24th, the Supreme Court turned back the clock on reproductive rights and on 50 years of personal freedom was taken from Americans all across this country. That day, the Lieutenant Governor, the First Lady, and I vowed to protect your rights in Minnesota as long as we had the privilege to be in office. And I want to say thank you to Minnesotans who showed up in November to make sure that we're able to keep that promise. We're going to get to keep that promise thanks to the first pro-choice majority in state history. And it's certainly not lost on me and our DFL majority chambers in the House and the Senate are led by women. Speaker of the House, Melissa Hortman, and Senate Leader Carrie Dietzig. Never before in our state's history have both majority caucuses in the legislature been led by women. And because of their leadership, along with the leadership of Senator Jen McEwen, and Representative Carly Katiza-Watoon, and to the scores of legislators and advocates who worked on this bill, we're now at a signing of a landmark reproductive freedom bill less than 1 month after taking our oaths of office. And after last year's landmark election across this country, we're the first state to take legislative action to put these protections in place. So to Minnesotans, know that your access to reproductive health and your right to make your own healthcare decisions are preserved and protected. And because of this law, that won't change with the political winds or the makeup of the Supreme Court. This is a bill for Minnesotans today and all future generations. Soon we'll make it law. But before that, I'm going to introduce to you one of many of the champions who are going to speak here today, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan.
Whew. Wow. Well, this is a truly historic day, and because you are witnessing history, I wanted my daughter Siobhan and my niece Kate to be here to witness it, to know how hard generations of people have worked to get to this day. I, like so many others across the nation, was devastated when the Dobbs decision came out last summer. So I, like many of you I'm sure did, called my mom. She listened to my fears for my daughter's future and then told me she'd been preparing me for my whole life for this fight and for this moment. I know that she would be so proud of all of us and all of the good work we've done to get here today, and I know that she is in this room. So thank you to my mom and to all of the mothers and grandmothers and aunties and advocates who prepared us for this fight, this victory. Today, it is for you. This victory is for Indigenous women, for Native women, for Black women, for our LGBTQ+ neighbors and relatives, for low-income folks, for people who live in rural communities, and for everyone who has fought for sovereignty of their own bodies. I am so grateful that we have leaders in our Minnesota House and Senate who made sure that this was one of the first bills to pass in 2023. And I want to recognize, along with the governor, that it was women who got this done. Speaker Hortman, Majority Leader Dietzig, Representative Katiza Wattoon, Senator McEwen, and the scores of people who prioritized this bill, spoke passionately about reproductive freedom in the House and Senate floor, and got this to the governor's desk within the first month of session. This is extraordinary, and today is an extraordinary day. The PRO Act establishes in state law that you have a fundamental right to an abortion and reproductive health care. This bill also serves as another line of defense in our state to ensure that your rights stay protected and that no one can tell you what decisions to make about your body. And as much as I am breathing a breath of relief and celebrating this day, we have to acknowledge that this fight is not over. There is still work to do to make sure that abortion and comprehensive reproductive health care is accessible and affordable to everyone who needs it, no matter who they are or where they live. And last night I received a message. Yeah, you can clap for that. Last night I received a message from my friend Hillary, who lives in North Dakota, who is Indigenous, who said that we're grateful for the work you are doing in Minnesota to be a good neighbor. There are Indigenous people who will need to come to Minnesota, and I say to all of you, we welcome you here. And while today is a great day in Minnesota, we must remember that so many of our sisters, our neighbors, our relatives, and our friends across the country have lost their right to make their own choices. My message to them is that you are welcome in Minnesota, and we are not done fighting. Thank you so much to everyone for being in this fight. Gitchi Miigwech, many generations of Indigenous people have been fighting this fight for a long time. We all stand on their shoulders, and we've got a lot of work in front of us, but today we can celebrate, and I am honored to be in community with all of you, and I'm so proud to have my daughter and my niece here. And I got through that without crying, so it was really exciting. So with that, someone who has been fighting this fight for a long time and whose leadership has been an incredibly powerful tool for justice for Minnesotans, Speaker Melissa Hortman.
Whoa!
Well, good afternoon. Politics is a team sport, and today's victory belongs to hundreds of thousands of Minnesotans. This victory took the effort of every single person who volunteered on any one of our campaigns, who got engaged in these campaigns, and who voted to protect reproductive freedom in the state of Minnesota. That's why 103 legislators were invited to be here today. It took 34 senators. It took 69 members of the Minnesota House of Representatives, and so many of them are here behind me right now. They represent the many more people who are part of this victory and who could be here as well. I have to give a big shout out to Senator Bobby Joe Champion, from one presiding officer to another. Presiding over a legislative chamber is a challenge under any circumstance, but a bill of this importance and a debate of this length that was very impressive. Fundamentally, this legislation is about who decides. Who should be legally entitled to make reproductive health care decisions for an individual? And I think Senator Nicole Mitchell shared a personal story that was illustrative of why this decision has to reside with the individual and the individual only. It can't be decided by politicians. It can't be decided by judges. Minnesotans deserve reproductive freedom. I'm really proud of being part of the DFL team that protected that freedom, and I'm honored to be a part of this ceremony today. And with that, I like to introduce the leader of the Minnesota Senate, Carrie Dietzig.
Yay!
Hi, everybody. I'm Senate Majority Leader Carrie Dietzig, and today I am so honored to be standing here with these leaders, including the bill authors and the Reproductive Caucus members who had the courage to trust Minnesotans. We trust women, we trust patients, along with their licensed medical professionals, to make the right choice for themselves and their family when it comes to reproductive health care. Senate DFLers heard Minnesotans tell us over and over again, they don't want their children to have less rights than they did for the last 50 years.
That's right.
7 months ago, when the Supreme Court overturned 50 years of precedents, Minnesotans wanted us to act. They voted us into the Senate majority in part because we told them we would preserve rights and freedoms, not take them away.
Hey. Hey.
On Friday and into the early morning hours of Saturday, the Senate DFL majority remained united. We had a sometimes thoughtful and sometimes difficult 15-hour debate. We heard many very personal stories, including, as Speaker Hortman said, Senator Nicole Mitchell's. And through all of that, President Champion presided over the Senate. In the end, Senate DFLers said, we trust patients, their families, their medical professionals to make the choice that is best for them, a choice that could save their life. We voted to make those rights and freedom part of Minnesota law. In both the Senate and the House, we voted to preserve access to reproductive health care. And as the PRO Act becomes law today, with President Champion's signature, Speaker Hortman's signature, and the governor's signature, Minnesota will be a safe place for reproductive freedom now and into the future. And with that, I'm going to introduce Representative Carly Katuza-Wattoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Representative Carly Katuza-Wattoon, the chief author of the PRO Act, HF1 in the Minnesota House. I'd like to say a quick word of thanks to Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, Majority Leader Dietzich, and Senator McEwen as wonderful partners in the other body, and of course, Speaker Hortman for her ongoing leadership and support for reproductive freedom. I want to thank every single one of my colleagues who stood alongside me and voted in support of this bill. And I want to thank the advocates, the medical professionals, the patients who have shared their stories, and the Minnesotans who have shared their support. We heard you. Thank you. Since 1973, when the right to healthcare privacy and bodily autonomy was guaranteed at the Supreme Court level, anti-choice organizations have been working to take it away. Since Roe was overturned, nearly half of all the states have banned or severely restricted abortion and other reproductive health care. Today, because you've shared your stories, because you trust your neighbors, because you rode your vote, Minnesota is making history. The PRO Act protects reproductive options and creates a fundamental right for every Minnesotan to make autonomous decisions about their own body. Not only are we standing here today as proud Minnesotans, but we are also here as Americans. And with the signing of this bill, Minnesota forever will be a North Star as every one of our neighboring states continues to deny fundamental rights to their citizens. Today, we are leading by example and holding true to our Midwest values of kindness, compassion, and being a welcoming place for everyone to call home. Thank you. Our work continues, and I'm going to pass it along to Senator McEwen.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm State Senator Jen McEwen. I am the lead author of the PRO Act in the Senate, and I represent Duluth in the State Senate. First of all, I just want to say also thank you. Thank you to each one of my colleagues in the Senate, and in particular, my DFL colleagues who stood firm and grounded in our vote that we took in the early morning hours Saturday. To to be a part of a caucus like that, where people are so grounded in our values and grounded in the duty that we had to carry out the will of the people of Minnesota to make sure that this bill made it across the finish line. It is just such an honor to be a part of that caucus. I also wanted to just say thank you so much to all of the leadership and the members of the Reproductive Freedom Caucus. So, yeah, a couple of years ago now, a little less than 2 years ago, a group of us in the legislature could really start to see the writing on the wall, that it was very likely that Roe v. Wade was going to be overturned. And furthermore, we were tired of playing defense for these assaults on our reproductive freedoms constantly coming through. Yes. So at that time, we got organized. We got together. We formed the Reproductive Freedom Caucus. We met regularly. We started coming together to put together a legislative agenda and to put together plans so that we would be ready if and when we expected that Roe would be overturned. And we were ready because of that work that was done by the caucus and so many of the leaders in both the Senate and the House. So thank you to the Reproductive Freedom Caucus for setting the stage for all of this work, including the PRO Act that we just passed this last weekend. I'll just leave you with a thought that has really been staying with me through this past weekend and like giving me so much joy and comfort, and that is that I am just so proud to live in Minnesota. I am so proud to live in a community, in my community of Duluth, in my community of the state of Minnesota, that knows how important it is to protect and enshrine these liberties and freedoms, to make sure that Minnesota will remain this North Star lead in the Midwest, that we will protect individual liberties and freedoms. We will make sure that individuals have the right to make autonomous decisions about their own health care. I think I said that about 15 times or more on Friday night into Saturday morning. But it just gives me so much pride to live in this state, and I thank each and every one of you who made sure to send a pro-choice majority to the legislature to re-elect our wonderful governor and lieutenant governor and our statewide officers to make sure that we would protect these freedoms. We will make you proud. We'll continue this work. As many have said, the work is not done. There's more to be done, and we will continue that work. And I'm just so thankful and so proud to be here this moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. And now I would like to invite up Liz Van Heel and Dr. Melissa Richards.
This is not on my speech, but what a sense of relief. Like, when I speak upon like every OBGYN women's healthcare clinician, relief. That is the first thing that I think of. Back to my speech. Good afternoon. I would first like to express gratitude to those who showed up in November with the intent of today. What does the PRO Act mean for my fellow colleagues and our patients across the state of Minnesota? For a small but mighty group, it means they can continue to provide compassionate, evidence-based reproductive health care in Moorhead, Duluth, Rochester, Brooklyn Park, St. Paul, Minneapolis, Robbinsdale, and Bloomington. It means that Minnesotans and non-Minnesotans can continue to receive health care with dignity and the respect that they deserve at those locations. For me and the vast majority of my colleagues, the impact will feel ordinary, while sometimes providing extraordinary health care. Ordinary patient care is how I would describe 95% of my reproductive health care that I provide. We help people become pregnant and care for them during their pregnancies. We help those who choose not to become pregnant, not become pregnant. The PRO Act allows ordinary patient care to remain ordinary.
Amen.
extraordinary that requires extraordinary care in many of our practices is to navigate through the unexpected twists a much wanted plan for pregnancy can sometimes lead to. An initial OB visit for a fertility patient can quickly turn into a pregnancy of unknown location or viability. A 2 a.m. trip to the emergency room can turn into a primer on periviable rupture of membranes, risk of infection, and sepsis. The much awaited anatomy ultrasound can become a complex coordination of care when an unexpected non-survivable finding is seen. These are just a few of the ordinary but difficult medical conditions, reminding us all of the privilege it is to care for our patients and their families. With the signing of the PRO Act, the people who will discuss the next step in healthcare management will be those who are in the exam room.
That's right.
Now, the clutch part, the person deciding the next step will be the individual with the uterus. Healthcare clinicians can continue to focus on providing medical recommendations based on our years of training, research, and clinical expertise. Our patients can continue to make autonomous reproductive healthcare decisions within their community. Today is certainly historic, as it is made clear the reproductive rights are and will be a non-negotiable right here in the state of Minnesota. Now, with great appreciation, and we should all feel very humbled by this experience, I would like to introduce Liz to share her powerful story.
Hi, I'm Liz. Thank you for the opportunity to share today. I was thrilled to learn I was pregnant. I was keeping up with OB appointments and everything was going really well. At 18 weeks, my husband and I went into the clinic for the big ultrasound. The tech went over a few key areas of anatomy and told us it was a boy. I was overwhelmed with joy. A few moments later, the doctor called us into her office, and I could tell right away that something was wrong. I'll never forget the words she used, not compatible with life. I was shattered, and I was also trapped because I was still pregnant. I told the doctor I wanted an abortion, and I wanted to proceed as soon as possible. The abortion itself was fast. I felt no physical pain and no emotional trauma. I spent that summer resting, bonding with my 2-year-old son, working and processing my grief. I have never for a second questioned my decision to get that abortion. Continuing that pregnancy would have been detrimental physically and emotionally. It would have impacted those around me, my family, and the patients I was treating in my capacity as a therapist. Access to a safe, legal abortion gave me agency in a terrible circumstance. My abortion was a gift, and for those who value bodily autonomy and privacy, the PRO Act is a gift.
Thank you, Dr. Richards, and thank you, Liz. And with that, I would like to introduce Representative Ruth Richardson.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ruth Richardson, President and CEO of Planned Parenthood North Central States, and it's an honor to be here today for all of our patients, doctors, nurses, and staff. The PRO Act codifies reproductive rights into the law and gives Minnesotans assurance that their rights will be protected and defended in Minnesota. There have been so many emotions in the shadow of the overturning of Roe versus Wade, and today, for a moment, we can take a collective breath as Minnesota will be a North Star for reproductive rights. We firmly believe that every single person should be able to decide and control their reproductive health care and their lives. Planned Parenthood North Central States is proud to serve over 100,000 patients annually, providing non-judgmental expert sexual and reproductive health care, including cancer screenings, HPV vaccines, birth control, abortion care, PEP and PrEP, STI testing and treatment, and mental health services. Since the Dobbs decision in June last year, we've seen a 13% increase in patients from outside of our region and a 40% increase in second trimester abortions. As we watch more and more states ban abortion, seek to criminalize abortion, and limit access to birth control and gender-affirming care. I'm immensely proud to be here for today's bill signing and thankful to everyone that made the PRO Act possible. This took a village to get to this point today, and thank you all for making history.
Well, I'd like to say thank you to all the speakers. Liz, thank you for sharing and trusting us with your story, and thank you for the privilege of standing as an ally with these powerful voices. Allies are here too, folks maybe standing in the back row, but folks have been fighting these fights for decades. There's folks standing up amongst us here who were there when Roe was signed into law, and they never quit fighting all the way to today. And just as a notice is, no one here will stop fighting. No one's under the illusion that those that wish to take that bodily autonomy away will stop. Also glad that we're joined by Minnesota's lawyer, Attorney General Ellison, so thank you for being here. And for Minnesotans, what you're going to see now at a time when it becomes very frustrating watching the democracy, Minnesota's democracy worked great. Minnesota had a debate last year on the issues. We voted in near record numbers. Our votes were counted, they were secure. Winners and losers were determined, and then policies moved forward. Deliberative bodies took this up, opportunities were made to make the case, and votes were taken. The voices of Minnesotans were heard, and the vote put this bill to this place. And you're going to get to see something you don't normally get to see today, but it's important on this whole process of how democracy works. The bill was written up by incredibly hardworking, nonpartisan folks at the revisor's office who prepare this legislation for us. They're going to put it in front of the President of the Senate for the signature. It is going to then move to the Speaker of the House, as law states, to put a signature on it. And then I, as governor by statute, have the ability to sign my name, and the PRO Act will become law of the land. That's how democracy is supposed to work. That's how this process is supposed to work. And to the countless Minnesotans who were out on the streets in this debate, making their voices heard, making sure that you put people into elected office who would make sure they followed through on what the will of the people were, I want to say thank you to you. At this time, I'd like to ask Senate President Champion. And you won the coin toss. All right. Speaker Hortman to the desk.